I am your host, Agnes Wolf. Today I have Chelle Cypress, the author of Unmasking the Curse. It is not yet out. It should be released in a week or two on November 1st. This is her first time published. And if you are not following her on TikTok, I found her TikTok. She may not know this, and I've been watching it. She's pretty awesome. So you should definitely go check her out there. All right. So first off, Chelle, could you tell me about yourself?
Hi, I'm Chelle Cypress. I'm a debut author. My novel is Unmasking the Curse, coming out November 1st. And I'm really excited about it. I'm also a mom, a wife, and just a pretty much overall goofball. I love anime and reading and all kinds of stuff like that.
So I ask everybody this, but what inspired you to become a writer?
Honestly, I always wanted to be a writer, even when I was a little kid. Way back when I was younger, I remember our third grade assignments were to write like chapter books, and my best friend Ricky and I would just sit and like write chapter books all the time. And even like when I was in fifth grade, like I wrote one of those little like books and submitted it to like our state's like writing contest. I actually got like runner up for like my age group, which was super cool. It was called Princess Knots a Lots, about a girl who had like knots in her hair and like had a magical brush to brush them out. And and so like I've always loved writing, and even thinking about like the careers and the things I've done, like writing copy or marketing or newsletters has always just been so much fun for me. And I finally kind of took the leap of like going from this is something I enjoy and a passion to like just taking the leap and actually doing it.
I feel like we're kindred spirits here. Okay. So what was your inspiration for this particular book?
Unmasking the Curse was really birthed out of a place of kind of darkness. And I know I'd like come across like super peppy in all my TikToks, and I am a very like peppy, like bubbly person. And at the same time, like, like I tell people like I can be the sunshine and the storm. Most people aren't like just one-sided. There's a lot of sides to them. And so for me, like when I wrote the book, it actually came from a poem I wrote about feeling very like just kind of weary coming out of a time of depression. I felt like I had to really hide who I was. And as I was really thinking about it, this like story started to unveil itself to me, because I'm a pantser, not a plotter. So like things just kind of unveil. And I started writing it down during right before NaNoWriMo. And I heard about NaNoWriMo, which is National Novel Writers Month in November. And I just went for it. I wrote the 50,000 words in the month and finished the first draft. And it's kind of history from there. It's just been 2 years of me tweaking and critiquing my work and trying to get it ready to be self-published.
That is awesome. So you self-published then. What made you decide to publish?
I decided to self-publish for two big reasons. The first one was time frame. Like I did get accepted by a small press, but when they told me I wouldn't be published for like 2 years, it was like 2025 at the time, or 2024, I was like, oh my God, like it's gonna take me so much time to get published. And two, like I am trying to live a low demand lifestyle to some degree. And I used to do real estate. So like deadlines were like, that's all there was deadlines. And the idea of going under somebody and having to be like under their deadlines was overwhelming. And for me, I felt like it was going to take a lot of the creative process out. So I decided to opt for self-publishing, which has been super great. And I've found a wonderful community of like readers and writers who have supported me. And I know that self-publishing isn't the right process for everyone, but for me, it was the right thing to do.
I know, like as a self-published person, you actually, even as traditional, you have to have a nice audience. And I feel like you've done a really good job of marketing at this point, especially like when I was going over your TikTok, I'm like, I'm following her.
Go ahead.
But I was wondering, what are some things that you did for marketing your book as a self-publisher?
Let's see. There's like a lot of things. I think that the first thing I did is that I just wanted people to follow my process, right? Whether they read my book or not, I just wanted to share the process of writing, because I had never published a book before. I've never written a book before. So I just wanted to record my journey. So I think I finished in like November of 2021 is when I finished my first draft. I posted my first TikTok about my book in like December of 2021. Like a really rough, like, this is what my whip's about. And I have been like sporadically posting, and I do a lot of posting about like other books and supporting other indie authors. And as the book's getting closer, I'm posting more and more about it. But I just really wanted to document my journey, my journey of writing, my journey of growth, and just kind of accepting authentically who I am, my journey through like using writing for my sobriety, just like all these like things I wanted to share with people. And I'm so, so fortunate that like so many people have joined me on this journey and have like cheered me on. And it feels like the way it feels is like I'm on this path and all these people are walking beside me. And it just feels so like, I'm like almost gonna cry thinking, it just feels so overwhelmingly blessed that like here's this like very solo typical journey of like writing, and I have all these people who are just like right behind me or right beside me or right next to me, like just guiding me through it and helping me along and cheering me on. And it's the best. It is just amazing to have a community like that on TikTok. They are BookTokers are amazing people.
I am just entering that world because I like have had mine forever, but I have not actually started posting in it because I was focusing on something else, and now I'm into this. But you do a really good job of building community. Can you tell me some keys of your building your community and how you were build an audience and connect with others?
Yeah, I'd love to. I think the biggest thing is like I know that for me, I feel like building community starts from connection, right? And so I don't just make posts and are like, okay, like here's my post. I go like and follow and share. Like I go into people's like posts, I comment on them, I like them. Like when they're talking about books they like, I'm trying to like, talk about them, especially if I read them. I recommend other indie authors' books. I try to encourage and promote and like uplift other authors and other readers. And I think like for me, I think that everybody's important, whether they have like 2 followers or 1 million followers. Like I want to treat them the same because they're people, they're my readers, and they're like to some degree, like my friends and my community, and they matter. And I want to treat them like they matter. And I think that has really come across in like my posts and like how I try to engage the community and just how I try to approach like how I like do Instagram and TikTok posts. And I will say like also like, I did do real estate back in the day. And so there is like a level of marketing from doing that. And so like I do know like the importance of building like a newsletter, right? So like I've been very fortunate to have a lot of people sign up for my newsletter, and I do provide like freebies. So I've done like they get the first to see art first. They get to see the first blurb, the cover. So they got to see everything first. So I did PR boxes, they got it first. And I'll probably drop like my first chapter sometime this month. They'll get to read it first. Because go ahead. You did? Yay! Well, then you'll get to read my first chapter first, probably in the next like couple weeks when I set up my pre-orders. So, and it's super exciting. So, those are kind of the things I focus on for building community and marketing, and gratitude. Gratitude. Like I am so, when I wrote this book, I was like, 2 people are going to read it. I have 350 ARC readers, and every time I look at that number, I am like, how?
Yeah, that's so amazing.
How?
I think it is a lot of the way that you have been able to build your community. But you know what we really want to talk about is your book. What would you consider genre? Because that was something I didn't ask, even though I think I know. I want to make sure I hear
my genre.
Yes.
So my genre is fantasy romance, which means it has a heavy emphasis on the romance in a fantasy setting. And I know like fantasy romance and romantasy are like really like slippery slope terms, but the way it's been described to me is like romantasy is like the focus is on the fantasy with a romance subplot, where mine is a romance plot in a fantasy world. So that would be the genre.
That's exciting. I love fantasy. Okay, so what would you say your plot line is without giving away any spoilers?
Okay, so I will do my best. The plot is that my book surrounds Ariana Park. She is a woman in her mid-20s, and she is the bearer of a curse of death and destruction. She is bound to a porcelain mask that suppresses the darkness within her. And she walks through life being very, like, people are very fearful of her and they don't really care for her because of this curse she carries. And her entire persona and personality is really meek because of that. In my novel, you know, where some novels and fantasy, the heroine is like, I know, like, that no one likes me, but like I rise above because of it. Like, she takes the other trauma approach. She does not take the fight trauma approach. She takes kind of more of the freeze, flee, fawn approach. And she resigns herself to wed kind of an odious man because her family is in dire financial struggles. And in order to save them, she gets engaged to this man, Theo. But everything changes when a handsome stranger comes into town with a deeper knowledge of her curse, and all kinds of shenanigans ensue. There's a lot of glass clutching, there's a ball, there's a lot of tension, and a lot of like, will they, won't they, for a lot of the book.
Okay, so I know that the title seems kind of self-explanatory from what you've said, Unmasking the Curse. Is there any other meaning besides the obvious where she apparently
Yeah. So there's two parts to it. So Unmasking the Curse is literally her like not having to wear the mask anymore. So at some point, like, you know, without giving too much away, she's going to learn how to cope with that darkness within her. And then the other part of unmasking is unmasking also can be like discovering. So it's also about finding out the truth about her curse. So there is a dual meaning without me giving away too much.
I know you said that it's all that writing a character is very excuse me. Writing a character is a very autobiographical. That's a hard word for me to say for some reason today. Why would you say that?
I think it's because like Ariana comes from a place of kind of like being a little bit of a people pleaser, a little bit of a pushover. And for a really long time, like I was very much like that, like standing up for myself, speaking like what was important to me, setting boundaries was super hard. And how I perceived myself versus I think like how the world actually perceives me was very skewed, and not in like a positive way. I think people look at me in a much more positive way than I viewed myself. And so like I wrote a lot of that like self-doubt, that self-pain into there. And much like Ariana, like I've grown through it and I've grown out of it. And I've, you know, I've used the characters that she's around to help her like flourish into like a stronger, more self-confident person. Much like the people in my life have helped me become a stronger and more self-confident person.
Awesome. I think that's such an important message because I think that resonates with so many people. So how do you work on character development?
I think for me, character development is like the funnest part. Like I absolutely love it. I've said it before, is like I feel like my characters like chatter to me like all the time. And I like, even like driving, I heard like this song and I was like, oh my gosh, like I know exactly what's going to happen for this one scene in book 2, because like this song like invoked an emotion and it was almost like seeing a video play out in my head where I was like, oh, like, oh, I know exactly like how they're going to react. And so there's a lot of that, like music really triggers my creativity. And so when I hear certain songs or I hear like certain sounds or different things like that, it really helps me to see how my characters are going to interact in the world. And then when I get stuck, I love journaling as my characters. Like, so I'll pretend like I'm them and I'll be like journaling about my day. And it's been really helpful to bridge between like book 1 and book 2, because this is going to be a series, because I've been kind of stuck where I'm like, well, where are they going to start off? Because it's going to be a few months after book 1. And I'm like, oh, like I need to journal about like, this is what's happened the last few months. And I can't believe it. Some of my characters have been very sassy about the 3 or 4 month break between the 2 books. It has not been good for them.
That is good. That was actually going to be my next question was, is there going to be a sequel? So is this
Yes.
series or is it just going to be 2 parts? What do you think?
It's going to be, my goal is a 3-book series with potentially 1 or 2 novellas, because there are other characters who want stories. And I kind of see how they can all intertwine. I think the hardest thing is like, there's like 2 characters where I'm like, are you going to be big parts of book 2, or are you going to be novella characters? And I can't quite decide, but they are very insistent that they are in book 2 and that they get perspectives in book 2. So it's going to be interesting. I need to really like draft out again, like these big sections and chunks, and see if it will flow how I want it to flow.
I always end up buying the ones that have the novellas, like they have all these different characters' perspectives. I think Lunar Chronicles was one of them that did it. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It started with Peter. You should read it. I think you'd like it. It's a really great series. And then and then there was like a bunch of novellas. I think there's this book. And I just love when they do that, because then you don't get rid of the characters so soon. Because I always feel sad when I get to the last book and I'm like, there's nothing left.
Right. Well, and I love novellas, and I do write in first person past tense. And I love novellas for the fact that like they really give you an understanding of different characters' perspectives, right? Because it's like, I will say I write, my characters are not the most, oh, it's going to drive me nuts. You're going to have to chop out this part of me trying to remember this word.
Parts that I have to chop out of myself.
There it is. Okay, I remember. Okay, start over again. Okay, the characters are flawed narrators, right? Because they're looking at the world through their perspective. So I think one of my most interesting thing is like when I get to have other side characters give their perspective, then you get to look at the situation completely differently, because all of us are flawed narrators. We're looking at it so solely through our perspective that we're not able to see someone else's perspective immediately because of their experiences, their past, the knowledge that they have. And I think it's just a more accurate way of portraying novels, in my opinion, how I like it.
More accurate life, like remembering that you are a flawed narrator. So when you're telling yourself, it's kind of like the story of learning to, like your friend saw you as this better person than you saw yourself. And it's because we're flawed narrators. We're going to tell bad things, or we're going to miss important things. And we got to remember just about books. That's what I love about reading. It tells us a lot about ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. I was just having the same conversation with someone else. I'm like, you learn so much when you read characters who are like you, and when you read characters who are the opposite of you, you learn so much.
Yes. Okay. So I have a few more questions here. Okay. So I have a few questions here. What is your favorite part of writing?
I love, someone else asked this question of me recently, and I will say I love foreshadowing and hiding Easter eggs. I love it so much. And I didn't realize that until like someone asked me this question, because like I do, like if you read my novels, I write them. So like if you read it a second time, you're going to catch the Easter eggs. You're going to catch those little things. And like I put Easter eggs for like other books in the future too. And so like I love it so much. It is so much fun. And so when someone catches it, and like, cause like some of my editors or my proofreaders like have left notes like, oh my gosh, I completely caught this, like right here, that you're foreshadowing like this to come at the end of the book. Oh, I love it. It's the best.
What's nice about that is those are the books that you can start over reading. Like as soon as you finish the last word in the last in the series, you can go back to the first one and you're like, okay, now I can read it with knowing the ending.
Yes. And then you'll like catch all these little things. And I absolutely love it, because I do try to drop like subtle hints of behavior, right? Because I personally don't, I think that most people are very subtle in what they do. Most people aren't very like over the top. And so like a lot of times I drop like these really subtle hints of behavior. And so if you were to go back, you'd be like, oh, like I see what you were doing here with that, or with them making this choice, like,
So I'm very old. So for me, I read the Harry Potter series when it first came out. And so like I had to actually wait for each book afterward. Because I'm that old. Anyway, but the one thing that I loved how she did was she had those little Easter eggs that I did not realize until the very end. And then when I went to read it a second time, I was like, oh my goodness, this first book was telling about this last book and I totally didn't even know it. I just love when they do that, because then those are the books you can just read over
Mhm.
and over and over. So
Yes.
another question, because I know you're also a big reader as well.
Yes.
What would you say your biggest inspiration, the book that had the most impact on you, either growing up or as an adult, or both of them?
Oh man, like I will say I actually really grew up loving classic literature, and like I've been thinking about this a lot, and I think like one book that's always really, like a couple books that have always really stuck with me are The Hobbit. Like The Hobbit's the first fantasy book I ever read, and I was like I think I was like a freshman in high school, and I remember reading it and being like, what is this like world that they just built? And from then on, I really enjoyed just like these more in-depth novels and world building and classic literature. Now, I am not the greatest world builder at all. I am not like Tolkien, but I loved reading it. And I would say other ones would be Jane Eyre. Jane Eyre, when I read it, when I read that novel, I think I fell a little bit in love with the Byronic hero. Like I know, like I do love Pride and Prejudice, and there is a Pride and Prejudice vibe in my novel. But I will say, like, Jane Eyre has such a special place in my heart because, like, the gothic vibe, the just the hauntingness of the entire novel was. I still like thinking about. I still remember sitting in my bed right now in like 10th grade and just devouring it, like absolutely loving it. And of course, Pride and Prejudice is another one that I love. I love Pride and Prejudice. I love watching Pride and Prejudice. I, love Mr. Darcy. Like many people, my book has Pride and Prejudice historical romance vibes. And honestly, like thinking about it, like recently, I realized that my character is a lot like Jane from Jane Eyre. She's very, very quiet, very subdued, very meek. And there is like this gothic element, much like Jane Eyre, at the latter half of the novel when they go into.
No
I
spoil.
almost just. I know. Hold on. Don't cut that part out. As soon as I did, I was like, oh no, I got too excited. Just but that there are Jane Eyre elements. There are gothic Jane Eyre elements on there too. I almost spoiled it for everyone. I got too excited.
Jane Eyre and The Hobbit are two of my favorite. In fact,
Yeah.
Jane Eyre is one I've read several times.
Mm-hmm.
The Hobbit is actually something I just finished that one, and I have the Lord of the Rings series next to my bed, ready to start. I have not
That's
yet.
awesome.
Something else. But one thing that you had said when we had first chatted is you called this book Beauty and the Beast with Pride and Prejudice vibes.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So I absolutely love that. All right. So I do have one more question, or a couple more questions.
Go.
First is, you have participated in Nano in the past. Are you?
No, I'm not participating Nano this year for two reasons. One, my novel comes out November 1st, and I have been grinding trying to get it done. And then two, I'm actually moving states like right before my novel comes out because I was like, it's a great idea. I should also move while I'm doing this. No, actually just circumstance happened to align that way. But I'm going to be taking a much needed break in November and December, and then jumping into probably drafting book 2 in the beginning of 2024. Is that the year we're going into?
Yes, it is. I can't believe it. So I totally forgot to ask this because when I first saw your book cover, I was like totally blown away. So you're self-published, so you had to find all of your editors for everything.
Yes.
Mind sharing how you went about that, and also how did you get such an amazing illustrator?
Okay, so I will say Jacqueline is brilliant. TikTok is the place to go for everything. And there is such a great community there, and so many amazing artists and editors and all that jazz that you need at your fingertips on TikTok. So for the covers, what I ended up doing is I went on TikTok and I just was like cover art designers, and I just scrolled endlessly through videos, and I saw one of her pre-mates, and I was like, she has the vibe I'm looking for, because I knew like there was like kind of a style of vibe I was looking for. And so I emailed her and I was like, hey, like how much is it? And it was was within my price point. So I was like, okay. And I told her like, this is what I want. And she luckily was like, no, you don't. You don't want that. And when she described why, I was like, oh, you are right. And so I let artists do what artists do best. And I let her kind of take my idea and run with it. And when she sent it to me, I was like, holy cow. Like I could have never, like in a million years, thought of that. So I had sent her my entire synopsis. And I mean, like the synopsis that I sent when I went to Query, which is the entire novel. And I was like, here's my Pinterest board. Here's the vibe. Like here, I gave her as much data as I could. And she's like, I got this. And then for editors, I did go through Readsy and other editors I found on TikTok. Readsy is like a database where they vet editors, they vet proofreaders, sensitivity readers, all that jazz. So the first editor I used was through them. And then I made a ton of changes after using them. And that was my, every baby author makes a baby author boo-boo. That was mine. I should have waited. I should have done one more round of self edits before sending it to her. But anyways, I found another editor, copy reader, and she was fantastic through TikTok. And then I just got it back from a proofreader on TikTok. And there's so many talented people there that if you find your community, you will find people who can help you. And then my biggest thing is just vet. Like, you know, if they have people they've worked with, ask them, look at their reviews, look at the reviews of the books that they've worked on, look at their cover, ask people's opinions, and other authors will help you. Like the best thing about being an indie author is like, we don't gatekeep. And that's why I'm like, we don't. Like if you were to say like, who's your author, like who's your cover artist, where did you get your boxes from, where'd you get your PR, I will tell you my entire list, whether you choose to use them or not. Like that's up to you, but I will be like, here you go, it's all yours.
Your book cover artist is absolutely amazing, and like I am in awe of her.
I know. And her backlist is, she also did one of the special covers for Fourth Wing. So that like the Fourth Wing cover where it's like all black, she did that. And she is brilliant. She's in Germany, and I'm like, she can have all my money. She can just, I'm like, I hope she's not listening to this because she's like, excellent. Double the price for book 2. No, she wouldn't do that. She wouldn't do that. She's super sweet.
All right. So I really appreciate everything that you've shared with us. I really appreciate the time you've spent with me. But I do have to ask,
go ahead.
What one piece of advice you'd give to an unpublished author?
Okay. The best advice I received that I took, and the best advice I could give somebody is take your time. Do not set a date for your book until you are like almost done, because I multiple times tried to set a date, and even I did give like a loose like summer of 20 like this year, and even you're like, didn't it publish it? And I was like, no, it didn't. And it's because you don't know how long it's going to take if it's your first book. Like I didn't anticipate from first draft through all the phases of editing I went through that it was going to take me almost 2 years to edit. And for me, and I will say I am a slower editor. I have taken multiple breaks, and I also have young kids and other things going on in my life. But I will say, like, take your time. Don't rush it. Go through the steps. Like find the artists you want. Find the editors you want. If you need a break, take a break. Like this is art, and art takes time. Art has to be done, in my opinion, in a place of rest. So if you're like just grinding away and not enjoying the process, like it's not going to be fun for you. And I think that's the best advice I have been given. And then I would want to give is like, just take your time, take a breath. Don't rush. You're not in a race,
Yes.
Just, and I know like, even for me, it's like, oh, I just want the book to come out. Like I really wanted it to come out on my sobriety date, which was July 30th, which is why I said summer of 2024. And then like life happened, and like summer break happened, and like children, and like, we're going to be moving and all these things. And you have to live life too, along with doing the work of the art and doing all the marketing and all the promoting and all the things you're going to be doing.
That is such beautiful advice. I love asking all these different authors, and everybody has something else so brilliant to share it. And that I just think is so great. Thank you for sharing that. And again, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to talk with me. And I will definitely be putting links to the book and any other links that you have. If you have a trailer, I'd love to make sure you send it my way, and we'll make sure we get this and I am strongly encouraged from everything I've read so far. I have not yet gotten to read the book because it's not yet out. I am so excited to read this, and I hope that so many other of you will join me in reading it. So thank you so much. Bye.